Something historic just happened in the courts, and it could redefine gun rights across America. This new ruling is already being called the most important Second Amendment decision since Bruin. Something historic just happened in the courts this November. And if you're a gun owner or even just someone who believes in the Second Amendment, you need to hear this. A new ruling has dropped that could completely reshape how America interprets gun rights. And it's already being called the most significant decision since Bruin. Overnight, what you thought you knew about concealed carry, background checks, and even what defines a firearm itself might no longer be true. This isn't rumor or speculation. This is real. It's already happening. And 7 brand new rules have effectively been written into the legal landscape. Whether you support stricter control or stronger rights, this decision affects you because the balance between personal freedom and public safety just shifted, and no one is entirely sure where it's going to land. So what exactly changed, and what do these new rules mean for everyday Americans? Let's break it down before the next big court challenge hits. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe and tap that notification bell. I bring you clear fact-based updates on the biggest legal and policy shifts shaping America right now. And if you find this video helpful, hit like. It really helps this reach others who need to know what's going on. In early November, a federal appeals court handed down a decision that, in simple terms, redefines the boundary between federal authority and individual gun ownership. The case stemmed from a challenge to existing firearm restrictions. But what makes this ruling explosive isn't just what it said, it's what it didn't say. For the first time since the Supreme Court's landmark Bruin decision in 2022, a lower court has openly declared that several modern gun laws cannot stand under the new historical test the Supreme Court established. So what are the 7 new rules emerging from this? They're not written into a law book yet, but every legal expert watching this case agrees these principles are now shaping how every gun-related case will be judged from here on out. The first and biggest shift is this: intent no longer trumps history. For decades, courts balanced gun laws by asking whether they were reasonable or served public safety. That's gone. Now judges must compare every regulation to the nation's historical tradition of firearm use. Essentially, does a similar law exist from the 18th or 19th century? If not, it's probably unconstitutional. That single change just threw modern gun control into chaos. The second rule emerging is about who can own a firearm. This court said that blanket bans on gun ownership, such as those applied to non-violent felons or people with restraining orders, may not pass constitutional scrutiny anymore. The argument is chillingly simple. If those categories didn't exist at the founding, can the government justify them today? This means thousands of existing cases could be reopened, and people previously barred from owning guns might regain that right. It's controversial, it's complex, and it's already sparking lawsuits nationwide. The third rule focuses on where guns can be carried. After Bruin, several states rushed to create lists of sensitive places where carrying a firearm remained illegal: schools, subways, government buildings. But the new ruling struck down portions of those laws, arguing that states can't just label modern spaces as off-limits without historical proof. So if you live in New York, California, Illinois, or any state that tightened carry laws, this decision could ripple right through your local regulations. Now here's where it gets even more technical and more consequential. The fourth rule deals with constructive possession. You've probably heard of this. When having certain gun parts could legally count as owning a firearm, the court just took a hammer to that concept. They ruled that unless an individual actually assembles or uses the part as a weapon, mere possession doesn't count. That means the government's authority to prosecute based on parts or potential weapons just got dramatically weaker. Then comes the fifth rule, the redefinition of firearm itself. The court said the federal definition, particularly around frames and receivers, was being stretched too far. Homemade or partially finished gun kits, often labeled ghost guns, may not qualify as firearms under federal law unless they're fully functional. Critics call this a gift to untraceable weapons. Supporters say it restores fairness and precision to an overrode statute. Either way, the ATF's interpretation has been dealt a serious blow. The sixth rule strikes at federal enforcement power. The court found that several enforcement policies created by federal agencies, including the ATF, lack proper congressional authorization. In plain English, that means agencies can't just make or expand gun laws on their own. Only Congress can. It's a massive setback for executive authority and a potential game-changer for future presidential administrations. And the seventh rule is the one that might matter most long-term. Precedent is no longer king. Courts are now signaling that past decisions upholding certain restrictions might not matter if they conflict with the new historical tradition test. This means laws that survived before, red flag laws, magazine bans, and even waiting periods are all back on the chopping block. Every one of them could face new legal challenges, and many will likely fall. Now, if you're thinking, wait, how can one case change all this? You're not alone. That's the million-dollar question. The answer lies in how the Supreme Court's Bruin decision rewired the test courts must use. This new ruling simply took that logic to its furthest extreme. In doing so, it opened the door for a wave of challenges that could redefine what reasonable regulation even means. So, where does this leave us? Right now, legal experts are divided. Some say this is a long overdue correction, a return to the Constitution's original intent. Others warn it's a ticking time bomb that could make law enforcement's job nearly impossible. Imagine a world where each state, each county, has to justify its gun laws with 18th century analogies. No police background checks back then, no modern assault-style weapons. So how do we interpret that? The courts haven't given a clear answer. And yet, behind all the legal theory, there's a deeper tension, a cultural one. Because when rulings like this land, they don't just change laws. They reshape how people feel about safety, freedom, and trust in the system. For some, this ruling is liberation, proof that government overreach is finally being reined in. For others, it's terrifying. A sign that we're moving backward in time, stripping away safeguards that protect communities from violence. But here's the thing, both sides have a point, and that's what makes this moment so explosive. Every time a case like this drops, the boundaries between state power and individual liberty shift just a little more. If you zoom out, you can see a pattern forming. The courts are slowly dismantling the modern gun control framework piece by piece. Not through Congress, not through election, but through legal reinterpretation. And whether you agree or not, that's where the real power lies right now. So what happens next? Most analysts expect this ruling will be appealed to the Supreme Court, and if the High Court takes it, it could become the biggest Second Amendment case in over a decade. But here's what's even more interesting. Several other cases across the country are already citing this ruling as precedent. That means this isn't some isolated event. It's the first domino in a much larger chain reaction. If you're a gun owner, these changes could affect how you store, carry, or even build firearms. It could impact the permits you need or don't need. It could also reshape how states enforce red flag laws and how judges decide whether someone can be disarmed after a misdemeanor. Every one of those decisions now has to go through this new historical filter. That's not small, that's seismic. And yet, amid all this legal noise, there's a human side we can't forget. Behind every ruling are families, victims, and citizens who all want the same thing, to feel safe and respected under the law. That's why this conversation can't just be about rights or restrictions in isolation. It has to be about balance. Are we creating a society where freedom and safety can coexist? Or are we forcing people to choose between them? So, here's the question I'll leave you with. Is this ruling a restoration of American liberty or a dangerous rollback of common sense protections? Because depending on how the next few months unfold, that answer could define the next decade of American law. This November decision didn't just redefine gun rights. It redefined the conversation itself. And the 7 principles born from it are now echoing in every courtroom and every state house in the country. If you made it this far, I'd love to hear what you think. Do you believe this court got it right? That we've gone too far in regulating the Second Amendment? Or do you think this opens the door to more risk and confusion? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want more clear, no hype breakdowns of major legal rulings like this, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. It helps this channel reach others who care about truth, law, and freedom just like you. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next. This November decision didn't just change gun law, it changed the entire legal conversation. And the 7 principles born here are about to shape America's courts for years to come.